At 3 years old, I was taken away from my mother and put into foster care. At 16, I ran away from home. I felt like I needed a change, that I was changing. At 17, I got married and I became pregnant and I had my first son. I thought that I was going to live happily ever after, but then life hits you and it didn't really work out. While I was waiting for the divorce, I became a correction officer. While I was a correction officer, I did meet an inmate who I got together with. I ended up having 2 children by him in the course of 3 years. To make a long story short, he was a con artist that I had to learn some lessons from. He also abused drugs. I tried to refrain from it, but then when the relationship, it didn't work out, that's when I started picking up and using. I said that this is getting the best of me, and I felt like they were going to take my children. It got worse. Then I was ashamed. Looking the way I looked, I didn't even know who I was. And I felt like I just didn't care anymore. And that's when I left my children with my aunt. While I was on drugs, I was homeless and living on the streets. I really didn't want to go to sleep. I couldn't believe how many days I would be up, and my poor children would watch me go back and forth, not knowing why I was doing what I was doing. My mother had a notorious crack house in Harlem, and I remember trying to go out and get as much drugs as I could to make her happy. I just remember using that as a way of trying to get close to her. I felt like the more drugs I gave her, the more she would love me. I started getting a record. The more I did it, the more scared I became. These are the very streets that I used to walk on when I lost hope. This is the lowest point of my life. I got arrested. This time they didn't let me go. They put me back to Rikers Island, where I used to work. I was being harassed by my ex-fellow officers who would wake me up in the middle of the night to see who I am. Is that really her? Me coming off drugs, me stopping, was when I got tired of being sick and tired. I got it together, and that came from within. I stopped because I was tired of killing myself. I felt inadequate about just going out to look for jobs on my own. I couldn't explain that 10-year gap that I was missing. My confidence was shot. I needed to be around other women that maybe have gone through a little bit of something in their life. And I was told by a friend about First Step.
First Step helps women to achieve their employment goals by providing technology training, professional development workshops, internship opportunities, and case management support. We really focus on the whole person. We think it's important for folks to have strong hard skills as well as have a positive support network and coping strategies in place. And because of this, we work on all of those things while folks are in the program.
I didn't even know how to turn on a computer. So they were patient. They taught me computer skills, confidence, and even speaking up again. It was almost like learning to walk again, just like the name First Step, learning to adapt again. My first hire was by Merrill Lynch. That was good for me, good training. But the challenge is what I needed. I was working at Merrill Lynch the day of 9/11. I felt the planes go in, and I knew it was time to immediately get out the building. I ended up outside and stood there until the buildings came down. And I was one of those people that had soot and dust and everything all over me. After 9/11, the company had to do background checks. And they found out that I was a felon. So they had to let me go. After I left Merrill Lynch, I went back to First Step
Graduate services provide a safe and familiar place for folks to come back and get support with anything that they need in order to continue moving forward.
We have graduate services on Tuesdays and Thursdays where the students can come in to use the computers for job searching, to update their resumes. We also have volunteers on site that will help them to prepare for interviews and apply for jobs.
I needed that guidance. It kept me going.
Early on in my career at Estee Lauder, I was lucky enough to hear about the First Step program. I found out about the Women Mean Business Luncheon, and I called my dear friend Jane Singer. I said, we have to go to this. Maybe this would be something we really can get involved with. And that was the beginning of the relationship.
I received an invitation in the mail from First Step for a Women Mean Business Luncheon. At the last minute before we stepped to the tables, they placed me at Deborah Krulwich's table.
Across the table from me was someone that I was just drawn to. And I passed a note, or I passed it by telling my neighbor, find out who this is, and is she looking for a job, and what is her status? Maybe I could help her. It was just meant to be. I just had to know who she was and what I could do for her. One thing led to another, and then Cynthia became an Estee Lauder employee.
I was a receptionist on the 39th floor for Estee Lauder. From 2003 to approximately 2008, I was then offered a position to be a business manager for Tom Ford Fragrance in Bloomingdale's. Bloomingdale's didn't work out for me. The older I got, the more scared I was, like, where am I gonna go with my skills? But I had help. First Step was always there. I got a call one afternoon from Bumble and Bumble, one of Estee Lauder's brands, and they invited me to apply for a job. I came into the Bumble offices on West 13th Street, and when I got in there, I felt like I was back home, and I felt wonderful just being on the interview. A day later, she called me and told me that they were going to let me in as being a receptionist. I cried. I cried on the phone. Thank you, thank you. I'm going to be the best that I can be. This time, I'm going to be my best, is what I told her. And I was. I still am.
Cynthia has amazing energy, and I think everyone who knows her would say that. She was, from the very beginning, so warm and welcoming and helpful and kind.
I think I'm right where I need to be right now here at Bumble. I'm right where I need to be, and I enjoy doing it.
Cynthia has had a very difficult life in many ways, but I think that she has a very strong interior and has been able to use her positive outlook to overcome so many obstacles.
Looking at my life now, compared to where I started in this whole journey, I think I needed to take the path that I took for me to become the person that I am now. First Step is the reason that I took a look at myself to see, wait, what's in there? What can I do? I'm always a first stepper. If something was to happen next week, God forbid, something happened next week, I think I would still turn around. I'm going First Step. They're there to help you. Help yourself. That's what's helping me to live my best life.